It was spring, the season of fresh and new. Birds were chirping, the sun was shining. There wasn't a single cloud to be seen in the crystal blue sky above. It truly was a blessed day from Jehovah himself. I was out with Alan in Foxtrot Circle, a large neighborhood full of expensive, well-manicured brick wall homes, each one at least 2 stories tall, most of them reaching a third. We were with a group of older folk, us being the youngest of the bunch, so they understood why we gravitated towards one another when going to doors in pairs. Every now and then, Brother Loveland would split us up and have us go with one of the sisters, especially in neighborhoods that looked rough. But once we reached Foxtrot, we paired up once again and started our journey from house to house, planning to meet the other groups at the car once each door was knocked on. Alan looked a bit melancholy as we started on our way, having just had a private discussion with his dad behind the car. My father told me he can't take us to the arcade after service anymore. Why not? He says we're too old to be going on the way we are, and if we aren't exhausted after service, then we should be going in service longer. Plus, it's been wreaking havoc on his car. The second part of his explanation was sound. I could grasp it. The first part felt right to challenge, however. We are exhausted after service. That's why we go to the arcade. Actually, I think he has a point. We're both young and full of energy. We could be giving so much more to God. But what about our mall time? We'll still be together all day, but we'll be in witness mode. We should always be in witness mode, Kai. I never stop being a witness just because I've taken my tie off. Well, if it's gonna be like that, maybe I can get a job and save up for a car. Then we can go to the mall whenever we want. Alan smiled. Maybe that's a good idea. We could go in service together with it too. Yeah, I said unenthusiastically. We could do all sorts of things, have all sorts of freedom. We could travel. We could see America. I was getting pumped up with my own ideas, though. Freedom, far away from here. Far away from my family in this boring little state. I could go anywhere with my own car, do anything with my own money, and I could take Alan with me. I just needed a job. Sounds like you have a plan. Yeah, who's hiring? He shrugged. Sister Dursey works at a retirement home. She says they're always looking for people. Retirement home. Far from glamorous, but yet so was I. I'll ask her if there's any openings tomorrow night at the hall. I changed the subject almost as quickly as I had brought it up. Did you hear Spur's next season is dropping in 2 weeks? I still haven't finished the first 2. I think I'm on episode 10 overall. Want to come over and watch it? I'm going to start the whole series over, so I'm ready for season 3. Can't tonight. I have family study with my folks. But maybe tomorrow if you're free. Can I at least tell you something that happens in season 2? It's standalone. I don't mind. Season 2, episode 4, is a musical. A musical? Alan was perturbed. For a cartoon drama about fantasy-themed cowboys and outlaws, a musical episode threw a lot of people off. It's good, though. I don't know how they managed it, but it doesn't suck. Why a musical, though? It takes a detour from the main story to talk about Scarlet West's past with her dad. Oh, I guess that makes sense. She loved music. I thought it would be Ulysses and Pete showboating like Sinatra. He laughed at the image. 2 rough and tough outlaws belting out a song. It was apparently supposed to be the opener to the season, but they didn't want people getting pissed about the show opening on a standalone episode instead of continuing from last season, so they moved it forward. Is the music good? Oh, you'll love it. It's very Broadway. They took a lot of artistic liberty with it. Opens on an old-timey stage with Scarlet in children's clothes. She starts singing about all the stuff her dad put her through after her mom died. Then it transitions and she starts singing about overcoming that part of her life with Ulysses' gang. Huh, it sounds quite tempting, actually. Maybe I'll come over for just that episode. My mom is making street corn and tacos if you want to stay for dinner. Alan smiled, tinged with guilt. I can't skip family study tonight. I nudged his arm as we approached the door and joked aloud. We could do family study together, like a newlywed couple. He bared his teeth with insecurity, looked at me and seethed while hiding a smile. We're right at a door, Kai. Fine then. I'll take this one while waiting on your answer to my proposal. I walked right up to the door, a giddy feeling in my chest that gave me just enough bravery to knock on the door and impress Alan with an eager attitude. We waited for a moment, sharing glances back and forth that made each other giggle. It was fun to joke, to pretend we were something we weren't. We didn't know why, but if it wasn't real, then it wasn't wrong, of course. I knocked again, this time being greeted by a raspy, hold on, coming from the other side of the door. My heart jumped in fear. A human was behind this one. A tubby older man with stains coating his old gray wife beater and sparse dirt brown hair opened the door, confusion on his face as he sized us up and down. "You from the government?" he asked. "No, sir." Shit, I didn't prep a presentation. "My name is Hezekiah. This is my friend Alan. And we... You queers? You want to get married? Want me to sign some petition?" "No, we're Jehovah's Witnesses," Alan corrected, hand over his heart as he leaned in softly. The man responded by slamming the door in our faces, mumbling something about wasting my goddamn time as he walked back into the recesses of his home. Alan shrugged, holding back a giggle until we were far enough away from the door to laugh the entire exchange off out of earshot. "Some brother or sister will be mighty glad to have that home come paradise." He walked with confidence away from the house, his head turning to look a bit smugly at the scenery before him, a well-manicured lawn with a great big tree next to the driveway. "That's a bit morbid, Alan." I saw what he was getting at, but I wasn't afraid to correct his overzealous thinking. "You realize he'd have to die for that to happen, right?" "If your neighbor tries telling you your home is on fire, do you just slam the door in their face?" "I mean, true, but nobody but us realizes how important the message is, you know? You can't expect people to take it seriously before they get a chance to know it too." His face turned softer. He looked at me with compassion and raised the tips of his lips. "You're right, Kai. That's why this is so important in the first place. That's why God has humans doing it, to relate to the human condition." "Exactly, my brother." It was such a forced way to say it, but it gave me an excuse to put my hand on his back enthusiastically. Touching him, it wasn't rare, but it always left my skin tingling and my face beaming. That's the power of the bond between brothers, I convinced myself. We came to a beast of a home, nestled deep behind a black gate opened by an archway. 4 stories high, a garden that could easily resemble a horticultural museum, sections of plants in variously sized circles set by stones adorning the front yard all the way into the back. Ivy was directed up around the edges, giving the house a fairy tale aesthetic. "I'll take this next one, then." Alan took the lead, his face looking confident and full of godly glory as he walked up to the stone steps of the not-so-humble abode. He knocked on the door, and we both noted the sign too late. No solicitors, along with the sound of at least 2, maybe 3, very large and angry dogs barking all the way to the front door. He looked to me, his face of confidence turned red as a woman's voice called out to the dogs, "Bonnie, Clyde, get the hell away from the door!" We both gulped as the sound of locks unlatching rang out from behind the wooden barrier, the dogs still barking all the way. Alan took a deep breath. He seemed to be whispering, "God give me strength," over and over again, chanting it for courage. The woman finally nudged the screen door open, the sound of woofs and howls getting louder and less muffled as more of the home was revealed. She looked tired, her clothes baggy and messy. I often forgot that not everybody woke up at the crack of dawn on random days of the week to go knock on other people's doors. "Good morning. How are you, ma'am?" Alan began, his cheery, happy-go-lucky attitude in full swing. "Could be doing better," she spoke with her words tainted in a country twang. She turned quickly to snap at the gray pit bull who was trying to claw past her through the metal screen door. "Bonnie, down! If this is a bad time, could I just leave something with you?" He was already reaching for his bag, snatching a pink paper tract titled, "Can the Dead Live Again?" "Do you mind if I just put them outside really quick?" She was holding back the brown scruffy dog at this point, who I assumed was Clyde, being the only thing keeping him from taking Alan's soul with his big white chompers. Alan couldn't get a word in either way before the door was closed, and slowly the barking diminished, until both canines were behind a sliding glass door in the back of the house. I was looking through a window, probably shouldn't have been peeking. Though the home's yard was beautifully manicured, the inside looked rough. takeout boxes strewn about the kitchen. A large bag of dog food was open and half empty on the floor. Several boxes cluttered the remaining parts of what I could see through the single pane of glass, but I had a feeling it was only worse throughout. I could see the woman approaching once more, opening the door a little bit wider this time, as though she wasn't ashamed of the state of her home. Alan snapped back into witness mode. "You're right, much more peaceful now." He smiled wide, radiating warmth and comfort from his friendly face as he directed her attention to the tablet in his hand. "My name is Alan, and this is my friend Hezekiah. We're out here today sharing scriptures and working to help build faith among our neighbors. Could I share scripture with you?" "I think I got a letter from one of yous. You Jehovah's Witnesses?" "Yes, ma'am. You got a letter from us?" "I think I got it right here, actually." She turned her attention to a small chest of drawers near the window inside, mail scattered all around and on top of it. She opened a couple drawers until finally she took out a bright yellow envelope. My father's witnessing envelopes. She gave out a sniffle, excused herself, and handed it over. Alan took a look at it. "Oh, yes. Sometimes we send letters to those who have recently lost loved ones or those we can't reach otherwise. Have you lost someone?" She nodded, her eyes growing wet. "My husband, he passed not long ago." "I'm so sorry to hear that, ma'am." Alan's compassion was heartfelt. I could tell he wanted to reach out and give her a hug, but something in us both said it would be best not to be so forward with a stranger. "I'm left with his dang dogs and his dang house." She held herself, arms crossed, eyes closed, waiting for the nightmare to be over. Could I share scripture from the Bible with you?" Alan resorted to the only other form of comfort he knew, witnessing. The woman seemed all right with it, though, nodded in response. He performed a couple well-intentioned taps on his tablet before bringing it up. The legendary Revelations 21:4. "Here, God is making a promise to mankind, to you and me as individuals along with everyone else on this earth. Here God tells us he will wipe out every tear from our eyes, and death will be no more, neither will mourning nor outcry nor pain be any more." I was reading along and caught his clever word change. Subtle, but effective, I thought. The woman gulped down a tear. "I'm not a very religious woman, sir." "Well, that's all right. We are no part of Christendom. We are an independent organization of Bible students." "You're a very kind man. Alan, was it?" "Yes, and my friend here is Hezekiah." "Kai for short," I butted in, just to say I said something. "Well, you boys be safe out there." "Thank you, Alan. I appreciate you boys trying to help. Just, this ain't what I need right now." "You have a lovely day, ma'am. As lovely as it can be. I do hope you find genuine peace in this time of immense distress." "I've been looking for that. Peace." She shut the door, and we were left there, Alan still holding the pink tract between his fingers as he put his tablet back in his bag. He brought the tract to his own attention as he began to turn around, contemplating what he should do with it. I was already facing the other direction, looking back as I was walking away. "You coming?" He shook his head quickly, as if shooing away cowardice. He turned back towards the house and slid the tract carefully through the metal panel of the screen, leaving it bent against the door, holding it in place and ensuring it would fall to the woman's attention once she opened her home up again. He turned back around and placed his hands in his coat pockets, looking satisfied with himself. I had an unshakable feeling that tract needed to be with her. He joined me, his long legs not taking him long to catch up as we walked back towards the sidewalk. "That one specifically?" "Yeah, I mean the subject matter of it, not specifically that tract that I left." "I mean, if she got a letter from a witness after her husband died, she probably already has that tract." I smiled. He held back a laugh with a tight grin. "Well, now she's got two, I guess. Maybe it's not what she needs right now, but maybe sometime in the future." "You think so? Think she's going to come running up to you at a convention?" "I can't bet on it, but the thought is nice." He was such a cheesy one. We heard stories like that all the time, brothers and sisters running into people they had witnessed 2 years prior at assemblies and conventions. I always found it hard to recognize people I had only met once. I didn't stand out as a young man to any degree. Ask an AI to generate you an image of an average Jehovah's Witness teenage boy, and you'd see me. How anyone could pick out my face in the crowd without knowing me personally first sounded impossible. I didn't believe it could ever happen to me. So it felt like even if I could make a secret impression on anyone in my ministry, I'd never know it. I thought more about how awful I was as a Jehovah's Witness because I couldn't make those impressions on people. I couldn't be ballsy and challenge their beliefs. I couldn't insist on leaving a tract when I was told they weren't interested. I couldn't look a grieving woman in the face and tell her she was going to see her husband again in paradise. But Alan could. And Alan did. Every day almost, seeing no need to take a break as he was young, strong, and healthy. He was overzealous to a fault, but he also made my life easier. If I couldn't be the quick-witted zealot with a love for the ministry as passionate as the flames of Jah, then I'd be a loyal partner to the man who could be that way, hoping his spirituality would not only rub off on me, but that his love for all of us would ignite in myself just by being around him. So we were faithful service partners, spreading truth and righteousness to all who would listen and all who refused. Book of Scarlet was episode 4 of Spurred's second season. Despite it receiving low ratings among critics and audiences alike, the music made for the episode became so beloved that it was eventually released on its own album. There's a line in the last song, a foreshadowing of what was to come. He's her new dear, also a queer, laying it down for the man himself. Did she just say what I think she said? I was catching it for the first time, somehow having missed it on my first watch. Likely the result of a bathroom break. What? Something about Pete being queer. I rewound it, and sure enough, up came Chloe, a shape-shifting harlot, belting her part of the song while a symphony of sound erupted behind her voice. He's her new dear, also a queer, laying it down for the man himself. She said it. She said Pete is queer. She was talking about Pete? She's talking about Scarlet and says her new dear. You didn't tell me Scarlet gets with Pete. Alan looked genuinely confused. I always figured he was gay. Wait, you thought Pete was gay before? He nodded. It's pretty obvious, Kai. I've never taken Pete to be gay. He shares a room in the cabin with Ulysses. They're cowboys. They don't have a lot of sleeping space. And Ulysses has been telling Pete that he needs to at least pretend to be normal if he wants to leave the gang and join his traditional family again. I thought he meant normal, like stop killing people and robbing kind of normal. I can't blame you for being oblivious. It's pretty coded at times, but it's intentional. Coded? He sighed, as if he shouldn't know that term. Then he shrugged as he explained, content created by those who want to address LGBT topics, especially in the past prior to gay rights movements, sometimes contained coded references to homosexuality. It was so those who were not in the know wouldn't object to the content, and those who were in the know could see themselves represented. He uncrossed his legs, suddenly becoming aware of his position. Not that I'm in favor of that, it's just that's how it is in the world. That's interesting. So it's like Where's Waldo, but only gay people know how to play. I chuckled and hit resume on the episode for the sake of respecting Alan's time here. His dad gave him until 6 p.m. to be home in time for family worship. It was already 5:28. Mom had started on the tacos while we finished the episode, the scent of spices and ground beef filling the living room and reminding me of just how empty my stomach was. Alan looked like he was being tortured by the smell, his stomach giving out an audible gurgle. I had been with him since 7 a.m. and had only seen him eat a bag of trail mix and half a bagel. You sure you don't want to stay for tacos? I truly wish I could. It smells amazing. He sighed as he raised up to his legs. But I really have to be going. Just then, Mom walked into the living room, a rolled-up apron on her arm. Kai, don't forget your father and I are going out tonight. Alan, are you staying for tacos? I can't. I have family study tonight. Well, more for you and your sister then, Kai. I'm going to go get ready. Have a good family study, Alan. She waved goodbye to him as she walked down the hallway and towards her bedroom. I looked up at Alan, raised myself up off the couch, and I still couldn't quite meet his gaze face on. Regardless, I pulled him into a bear hug, felt warm at the chuckle of surprise he gave out before holding me back tightly. Why don't we just move out together and be pioneer brothers? I mumbled into his chest, muffled by his pink dress shirt. He patted my back before we pulled away and straightened up. I'm afraid we'd need money for that. And last I checked, Neither of us make any money. If only going in service would earn us a stipend. Hey, we may be poor in physical wealth, but we're saving up riches with Ja. I don't suppose we could ask Ja to rent us an apartment, could we? Likely not. I'll text you when I get home. All right, Kai? He was walking towards the door, making his way out of my circle and back into the world. I took every last glance I could at my friend, following him to the entrance of my home, hands in my back pockets, only coming to realize just then that I was still wearing my suit and tie. If you don't, I'm going to have to spam your phone with the duck again. He hummed to himself and let out an audible breath from his nose before smiling deviously. I won't let you get the chance, he said before bolting out the door, running back towards his house and laughing while he looked back at me, giving a small wave while he pulled out his phone. I rushed back inside, running for my own phone, knowing my duty was to send that duck pic before he could send a text through. I had it on standby in its own folder, especially for this game we played, this mini battle of speed we enacted at least a couple times a week. But this time, he beat me. A winky face, just as I was hitting send on the duck. Foiled again! He rubbed it in. I'm going to learn how to modify my phone just so I have a button that immediately sends you that duck. He started typing once more. See what you'd have to do to match a fraction of my power? I sent the duck 12 more times, simply out of spite. Sister Dursey was talking to a rotund and tall young man when I saw her at the Kingdom Hall the following night. A chubby guy, with thick arms and a neck so large I was surprised he could find a tie for it at all. He was wearing a black trilby to cover his crisp golden blonde hair, and his bright blue eyes caught sight of mine as I walked over with the intention of stealing Sister Dursey away from him for a moment. Oh, Kai! She saw me out of the corner of her eye and greeted me with the warmest smile. She hugged me tight, 3 firm squeezes in her frail little arms, before releasing me and laying a hand on the other man's shoulder. Hezekiah, this is Brother Tuppen. He just moved here. He grinned and looked at me with a sharp turn in his face, doing his absolute best to look cool and absolutely failing. I raised an eyebrow at his stance, hands on his hips, his body hardly swaying as he looked me straight in the eyes and moved his mouth with as much exaggeration as possible as he spoke. Nathan, pleasant to meet you, Hezekiah, fellow king of Judah. What? Nice to meet you too, I lied. I didn't like him already. Oh, isn't this wonderful, boys? Now you and Alan won't be so lonely being the only brothers in your age group here. We aren't lonely, I wanted to say, but I bit my lip and returned to what I originally came to Sister Dursey for. Sister, can I speak to you for a moment? Of course. She turned her attention back to Tuppen rather quickly. Oh, Nathan, that boy over there, the tall one, that's Kai's best friend, Alan. He's a wonderful brother. You should go introduce yourself. Nathan bowed at her. I think I shall then, sister. He walked off towards Alan, and I felt a hot heat travel up my spine. I had nothing to be concerned with, though. Alan would be able to see through that phony demeanor. I had no doubt about it. I returned my attention to Sister Dursey. Sister, I've been looking for a job, and I was wondering if there's any openings where you work. Oh! She touched her heart before raising her eyes heavenwards, then returned to face me, putting a hand on my arm. Let me tell you something. Not 2 weeks ago, my boss asked me if I would assist in decorating for the holidays this year. I told him, I'm sorry, Mr. Palmer, but I'm afraid my conscience would not allow me to participate. He told me, Dursey, it's not that big of a deal. He said he lets me have far too much leeway in terms of my faith, and that even one of my Jewish co-workers was assisting in the decorating. I told him, well, Mr. Palmer, you can have this dang job. She nodded her head fast, reenacting nearly the entire exchange. I looked at her for a short moment of silence before responding. You quit? Oh, you wouldn't have liked working there anyways. Being around a bunch of old grumpy people all day. She laughed through her nose, her lips tightly closed in a hum as she shook her head. You can find a job, Hezekiah. You just need to pray. I felt a little let down, but it wasn't Sister Dursey's fault. She was right, though. There were plenty of jobs available for me. I just needed some faith that God would lead me to the right one. Thank you, Sister Dursey. I'm sorry you lost your job over that. It's just a matter of faith, dear. She was so sure of herself, of me, of God, of everything. 60 years old, and the woman was a ball of fire, a world traveler, and faithful to a fault. She said her goodbyes to me and moved on to continue socializing with the other congregants. Hands in my pockets, I turned to see Alan walking up to me, making his way through brothers and sisters equally who kept stopping him to tell him this or that. At some point his father had handed him an envelope full of cash that he was to drop in the donations box, himself feeling too weak once he had sat down to do it himself. My sight of the Tuppen kid was lost, until I caught him all the way in a corner chatting up Loretta and her dutiful companion Patricia. As much as it irked me, Lori had a good head on her shoulders for the most part. She was my big sister. Surely she could smell Nathan's bullshit from a mile away. She was probably just being nice. "Kai, you get a job yet?" Alan grinned at me, expecting the conversation with Sister Darcy to have gone swimmingly. "Nope. Sister Darcy quit her job because they wanted her to decorate for the holidays." "Oh, I'm sorry, Kai. I didn't know." "It's all right." I waved my hand. "I'm thinking tomorrow I'll have my mom drop me off at the mall so I can go apply to a bunch of places at once." "Be funny if you could work at the arcade." "Wouldn't that be the dream?" "It would be fun," I figured. "Could probably get good enough at the games that I eventually beat Alan in a few of them, too." "Have you met the new guy?" "I have." I nodded. He was still over there talking to Loretta. Patty had wandered off elsewhere and left her alone with him. Lori was giving him her phone, exchanging numbers, it looked like. "Don't like him." Alan turned in the direction I was looking. "Well, sure, he's a little off, but he seems all right." "He's under the age of 50 and he's wearing a hat in the Kingdom Hall." Alan shrugged. "Maybe he has a bald spot." "I highly doubt it. Plus, he talks like he's in an anime." I corrected myself. People in anime can be cringy, but they're still far cooler than Nathan thought he was. Thinks he's in an anime, at least. "I'm sure if you could wear a cowboy hat to the Kingdom Hall, you would, Kai." Cowboy hat would be way cooler than that eyesore on his head, too. I felt that heat again when I saw him reach out and hug Loretta for far, far too long. It was my first time going to the mall for something other than unwinding with Alan. In fact, this was my first time going to the mall without Alan, this mall specifically, at least. Mom dropped me off and told me to call her when I was finished. She offered to come in and help me, but I wanted to do it alone. I wanted to feel, for the first time in my life, that I was a capable adult. I had a folder full of resumes that stated nearly nothing except my volunteer work as a Jehovah's Witness. Dad told me he once got a job based purely off the fact that he reasoned his experience in the ministry could count as sales. I found it hard to believe, but it was literally all I had. I started with the booths that were scattered throughout the mall. First asked them how they started working there and if they'd pass my resume along to their higher-ups. When I happened to turn around at one of the booth workers I had just spoke to, only to find her tossing the resume in the garbage, my heart sank, and I started going to the stores instead. At the first shop, a loose tea store with overpriced canisters and beautifully decorated teapots, I was turned down by the manager herself because she already had all the staff she needed. Rejected, I moved on to the cell phone shop next door, only to be told they only take online applications. The jewelry shop seemed iffy to even talk to me. I guess I looked far too young to be trusted with criminally expensive bracelet charms, and each stop in the food court returned similarly daunting results. However, I still had a folder full of useless resumes, and had only covered the first floor. I had a good ways to go, so I grabbed myself a pretzel with the $10 Mom gave me and hopped on the elevator to the second floor. There wasn't much difference here. Applications are online only. The manager isn't in right now, but I can give him your resume. Sorry, we aren't accepting applications right now. Are you sure you're old enough to even be working? I felt defeated. My feet were tired, and there were hardly any stores left that I hadn't been rejected from. I was taking a break and checking my phone in one of those massage chairs, spending the final $5 that was left after I got my pretzel, when I realized I hadn't yet asked the arcade workers if they would kindly reject me and send me on my way yet. I messaged Alan to let him know how my adventure in job finding was going, and he responded with that picture of the duck, making me chuckle a bit. A slice of joy on this otherwise dreary day. Have you tried the arcade yet? Not yet. Was thinking about stopping there next. Do it! He sent the duck 2 more times. Albert demands it! Albert needs to chill. I'll do it when I'm done wallowing in my misery. When you're finished there, I'll get a ride with your mom and come get you, and we can watch Spurred tonight." My heart jumped with joy at the prospect. "The only thing that could make this day any better in that case would be if I get a job." He sent the damn duck again. "Albert believes in you, and so do I." I sent a smiley face back, my back massage having come to its destined end. I got a pink folder under my arm, and I waltzed into the arcade. It was pretty empty this early in the day, the only populator being a lone worker in her purple polo, her name tag reading Trisha. She was obnoxiously chewing a wad of gum, her hazy eyes glued to a phone that was laying on the glass display case she stood behind, her cheek resting on her hand while she scrolled along on her device. I had seen her a handful of times before, but usually there was a short, skinny dude working the front. He probably came in later, and therefore they wouldn't be needing me. "Hey there," I announced myself, and her bright green eyes shot up to mine. "Hey, arcade is self-serve. You can get coins from the kiosk." She was hoping to return to her phone when I walked a bit closer and made my case clearer. "Oh, I'm not here to play. I was wondering if job application." Yeah. Give it here." She held out her hand, her eyes returning to the phone. I fumbled a bit before opening up the folder and grabbing 2 resumes by mistake, putting one down in front of her before trying and failing to peel the top one off. She slammed her hand down and grabbed them both, taking a quick look before looking back up at me quizzically. "For experience, you just put sales?" "I've never had a job before, but I volunteer in field service as a Jehovah's Witness. It's like sales." She laughed, covering her mouth to keep from seeming rude. She straightened up and looked over it further, flipping to the other page only to find it was just another copy. "You think your religion qualifies you for a job?" I shrugged. "Gotta have faith, right?" "All right. You want a job? How's 8 an hour for cleaning boogers off arcade machines sound?" "Sounds great. Anything is better than nothing." "All right, then." She trailed off, looked for my name on the resume, and raised her eyebrows when she saw it. Hezekiah Whitman. What a name. They thought I was a girl before I was born. My name was going to be Orpah Anias Whitman. I don't know why I confessed that, but she seemed amused by it. "You must have heard that when it grew a pecker before you popped out, right?" She giggled to herself before handing the resume back over to me. "When can you start, Mr. Whitman?" "You can call me Kai, and I can start as soon as tomorrow if you need me." "Good. My other guy stopped showing up for work 3 days ago. Hasn't responded to my messages. Probably OD'd in an alleyway, so job is yours." She walked over to a cardboard box sitting on a black metal folding chair in the corner, started sifting through it before pulling out 2 purple polos with the logo for the arcade on the left-hand side. She put them on the display case in front of me before switching her attention to the register and checking a couple drawers underneath it, the third one containing a couple blank white name tags. She grabbed one and turned back to me. "Write your name. Doesn't gotta be your real name. You could put Orpah on there for all I care. Tomorrow." She cut herself off and turned around to look at a neon blue analog clock on the wall. "Can you show up at like 1 p.m.? I'll show you the ropes before it gets too busy. Usually around 5 is when we get anything resembling a crowd." "Sure, that sounds perfect." I was elated. Felt like I was walking on clouds. I got a job. And at the arcade, too. I couldn't wait to tell Alan. "Alrighty, kid. I'll see you then." I thanked her profusely, and we quickly swapped phone numbers before I gathered my things and went on my way. My legs were shaking with excitement as I walked away, my face beaming while I looked for Alan's name in my contacts and gave him a ring. "Alan, guess what? You got the job at the arcade?" "Yes! I was praying you would." I gave a little jump in my step at his proud tone. "Faith, that's all it takes. I'm thanking Jah so much right now." I laughed, nearly dropping my new name tag off the shirts I was holding in my other arm. "I gotta call Mom, though, and have her pick me up." "No need. She's right here. He was at my house. For all I know, he was praying with my mom that I get this job." "Congratulations, Kai. We're on our way to get you now." "I'll be meeting you guys at the front entrance, then." I said my goodbyes to Alan and my mom, a smile on my face a million miles wide. I did it. I got a job. Now what?